Margaret, signor Churchill, scena 2, ripresa 1.
Ça, c'est Sir Winston Churchill, le plus grand des premiers ministres britanniques. L'un des leaders des Alliés durant la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Il est décédé le 24 janvier 1965. Il y a exactement 61 ans aujourd'hui, le jour du post de cette vidéo. Et aujourd'hui, nous allons nous intéresser à sa philosophie en utilisant cette vidéo que j'ai traduite en français de la chaîne YouTube américaine Agora. L'une des meilleures chaînes que j'ai connues ces derniers temps, et nous allons nous intéresser d'ailleurs dans le futur à beaucoup de son travail aux suites des vidéos. Sur ce, go! PS, abonnez-vous à Agora et à moi.
Winston Churchill, the iconic British statesman, war leader, and writer, was not formally a philosopher in the academic sense, but his extensive writings, speeches, and political life reflect a rich, coherent, and complex philosophical worldview. His philosophy straddles pragmatism, classical liberalism, conservatism, and a deep belief in the moral responsibilities of civilization. To understand Churchill's philosophy is to examine not just his ideas, but the circumstances that forged them, the collapse of empires, 2 world wars, and the ideological challenges of fascism and communism. This essay explores Churchill's philosophy in 5 major dimensions: his view of history and destiny, his conception of liberty and government, his understanding of leadership and character, his cultural and civilizational outlook, and his ethical and existential commitments. Churchill held a deeply historicist view of the world. He saw history not as a random flux of events, but as a stage upon which great individuals shaped the destiny of nations. This was not a deterministic vision, but one imbued with contingency, responsibility, and drama. Influenced by Edward Gibbon and the Romantic historians of the 19th century, Churchill saw civilizations as fragile constructs that must be defended, especially in times of moral or military crisis. At the heart of Churchill's historicism was a belief in the decisive role of the individual. In his view, history is often made in moments of extreme decision, when the character, foresight, and courage of a single leader can tip the balance of fate. His admiration for figures such as Napoleon, Marlborough, and his own ancestor, the Duke of Marlborough, underscores his belief that history is shaped not just by masses or economics, but by moral resolve. Yet, Churchill's view was not naive hero worship. He understood that greatness without virtue could be more than destructive. He recognized, arguably in Hitler and Stalin, the capacity for immense historical impact, but lacked any reverence for their goals. In contrast, his own model of leadership was built upon constitutionalism, tradition, and moral clarity. Churchill also believed that history functioned as a mirror, reflecting not only a civilization's grandeur, but also its vulnerability. His emphasis on the decline of Rome and the fragility of empires underscored a philosophical commitment to vigilance and humility. In his historical writings, Churchill warns of the ease with which complacency and moral decay can unravel even the greatest societies. Churchill's conception of liberty was both complex and evolved over time. Early in his career, he aligned with the Liberal Party and supported progressive reforms, championing welfare policies, trade union rights, and democratic expansion. Later, he returned to the Conservative Party, defending property rights, imperial authority, and national security. This shift, however, did not indicate ideological inconsistency so much as a core belief in balancing liberty with order, reform with continuity, and arguably with the input of some external backers. Churchill viewed liberty as something to be earned and protected, not granted or taken for granted. He admired the British constitutional model with its blend of monarchy, parliament, and common law as a system that institutionalized freedom without descending into anarchy or demagoguery. His suspicion of ideologies, whether fascist or Marxist, stemmed from his belief that liberty was fragile and easily crushed under utopian schemes. In his wartime speeches, Churchill emphasized the moral dimension of liberty, the right of peoples to govern themselves, to live free of tyranny, and to preserve their traditions. He also understood liberty as a product of duty, that free individuals and societies must take responsibility for their own defense and moral choices. Churchill's defense of democracy was not rooted in abstract egalitarianism, but in a respect for human dignity and a skepticism of concentrated power. He believed that parliamentary democracy, with all its flaws, was still the best available means of limiting tyranny. He once quipped, "Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried." This ironic wisdom captures his philosophical realism. Moreover, Churchill's writings often reflect a belief in the moral foundation of liberty. He considered freedom not only a political right, but a spiritual condition. The condition under which human beings could express their full moral and creative potential. His reverence for English traditions, such as the Magna Carta, was not merely sentimentality. It was a philosophical defense of a legal and ethical framework that preserved the rights of the individual against arbitrary power. Perhaps more than any other philosophical theme, Churchill embodied a philosophy of leadership rooted in character, rhetoric, and courage. For Churchill, leadership was not about popularity or ideological purity, but about a vision, stamina, and the capacity to inspire. He believed in the power of language to elevate the human spirit. His speeches were not mere political tools, but philosophical acts, reaffirming human dignity and the power of resolve. Phrases such as "we shall never surrender" or "their finest hour" were not just wartime's morale boosters, but statements of existential commitment. The belief that human beings can and must resist the forces of dehumanization and despair. Churchill also espoused a deeply stoic philosophy of endurance. In the face of immense personal and political setbacks, including military disasters, electoral losses, and political isolation, he demonstrated an unshakable belief in perseverance. This philosophical resilience drew from both classic models and his own romantic understanding of the human condition. That greatness lies in defiance as much as it lies in victory. His leadership style reflected an Aristotelian concept of virtue: courage, prudence, temperament, and justice. These virtues, however, were not rigid principles, but qualities expressed in complex decisions, moral compromises, and moments of extreme doubt. His leadership during the Blitz, when he refused to evacuate London and chose to share in the suffering of his people, illustrates a deeply existential ethic of solidarity. Churchill's understanding of leadership also involved a tragic awareness of his limits. He recognized that leadership could entail loneliness, moral ambiguity, and the burden of irreversible decisions. In this respect, he shared affinities with ancient statesmen like Pericles and Cato, who understood that preservation of a republic might demand personal sacrifice and stoic endurance. Churchill saw Western civilization as a unique achievement, fragile, imperfect, but worth defending. His defense of Britain during World War II was not merely nationalistic, it was civilizational. He believed that liberal democracy, classical education, the rule of law, and free expression were the hallmarks of a society where the human spirit could flourish. This civilizational vision, however, was not without controversy. Churchill's support for the British Empire and his sometimes paternalistic views on non-Western people have been criticized. Yet his defense of empire was often framed as a defense of order, progress, and shared cultural values, rather than mere racial superiority. His writings on India, Islam, and Africa show a mix of admiration, misunderstanding, and strategic concern, shaped more by his belief in the civilizing mission of institutions than by biological determinism. Churchill's belief in civilizations also extended to aesthetics and learning. He was a painter, writer, and lover of history, and saw the arts not as luxuries, but as essential expressions of a society's soul. His prose, especially in works like the History of the English-speaking Peoples, reveals a philosophical commitment to cultural memory as a source of identity and wisdom. For Churchill, civilization was a moral construct as much as a political one. He believed that a true civilization fosters freedom, creativity, and individual excellence. His reverence for Shakespeare, Cicero, and other classical figures shows his commitment to a canon of excellence, a tradition that instructs and elevates. His view of civilization as a moral and aesthetic achievement was also a bulwark against barbarianism, totalitarianism, and nihilism. Churchill's ethical philosophy was grounded in realism tempered by moral aspiration. He was not an idealist in the sense of believing in human perfectibility, nor a cynic who dismissed morality as irrelevant to politics. Instead, he believed in a tragic view of life, that human beings are capable of greatness and depravity, that power must be checked by conscience, and that leadership involves choosing among imperfect alternatives. This tragic sensibility made Churchill wary of political utopias. He distrusted grand ideologies and social engineering projects, believing instead in incremental reform and prudent governance. His belief in the moral arc of history was conditional. It required human courage and institutional integrity to bend that arc towards justice. He also accepted that moral ambiguity of wartime leadership. His decisions, such as the bombing of German cities or the handling of colonial uprisings, were not made lightly. His private writings reveal a man deeply aware of the burdens of power and the costs of action. In this sense, his philosophy mirrors that of the ancient ethical tension between necessity and virtue. Churchill's ethics were grounded in duty and honor, not sentimentality. He believed that ethical decisions must often be made in the face of pain, sacrifice, and loss. Yet he also believed in hope, redemption, and the enduring value of human dignity. His philosophy was one of tragic hope, that even in darkness, the light of conscience can shine. Winston Churchill's philosophy defies simple classification. It is not a systematic doctrine, but a worldview shaped by history, crisis, and reflection. It combines classical virtues with modern sensibilities, realism with moral conviction, and national pride with civilizational responsibility. What endures in Churchill's thought is the belief that freedom is not inevitable. It must be earned, defended, and renewed by each generation. His life and ideas remind us that political philosophy is not only found in books and theories, but in the decisions, speeches, and sacrifices of those who lead in dark times. As a thinker, Churchill invites us to consider the interplay between fate and freedom, tradition and change, power and principle. His philosophical contribution lies not in originality, but in synthesis. The integration of action and thought, war and culture, liberty and responsibility. In this sense, he remains not just a figure of history, but a philosopher of the human condition under immense pressure. His reflections continue to inspire debates on the nature of statesmanship, the ethical limits of power, and the enduring struggle between liberty and tyranny. Churchill teaches us that philosophy, when lived in the crucible of action, can help preserve not only nations, but the dignity of humanity itself.
Nous pouvons résumer la philosophie de Winston Churchill comme un réalisme historique, une vision du monde lucide sur la brutalité de l'histoire. Mais convaincu que la volonté humaine, la liberté politique et le courage moral peuvent lui donner un sens, il croyait profondément à la démocratie libérale, non parce qu'elle serait parfaite, mais parce qu'elle serait la moins mauvaise des options face à la tyrannie. Comme il disait, la démocratie est un mauvais système, mais elle est la moins mauvaise de tous les systèmes. Hostile aux idéologies totalitaires, nazisme ou communisme par exemple, il défendait la liberté individuelle, l'état de droit et la responsabilité personnelle, tout en acceptant le pragmatisme politique quand les circonstances l'exigeaient. Pour Churchill, l'histoire n'avance pas automatiquement vers le bien, elle est façonnée par des choix, surtout dans des moments de crise, où le devoir du dirigeant est de résister, même seul, au découragement et à la facilité. Enfin, il croyait au pouvoir des mots, non comme un simple rhétorique, mais comme une arme morale capable de soutenir un peuple quand tout semble perdu.